Now, the weekend of gridlock for holidaymakers travelling through Dover has raised questions about whether French President Emmanuel Macron is still trying to punish the UK for Brexit. And in the leadership debate last night, both Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak were adamant that the blame does not lie on this side of the channel.
We have a few quick-fire questions, yes or no, quite simple, because we are running out of time. First of all, those huge queues that we have seen over the weekend in Dover, in Folkestone, is Brexit to blame for those queues? Yes or no? No. Categorical.
But Simon Calder, the country's top travel journalist, has gone massively viral because of this appearance on GBNews at the weekend, where he claimed that the queues were solely down to Brexit.
Because some of the ideas that this is all the French and they could just wave us through, that is absolutely not the case. And it's quite interesting that, the government will be delighted with this headline from the front page of the Sunday Times. French insistence on passport stamp causing holiday chaos. British insistence on passport stamp causing holiday chaos is actually the reality.
Now, that appearance prompted the former UKIP leader and border security expert Henry Bolton to make this challenge on Twitter. The new pin-up boy for Remainers is Simon Calder. He says we asked to be a third country and blames Dover delays on Brexit. I'll debate this with him on any TV programme that'll host it if they allocate sufficient time. Well, the gauntlet was well and truly laid down by Henry, and I'm delighted to say that Simon has taken him up on that offer right here on The Clash. But before we commence the duel, who do you agree with? Is it France or Brexit to blame for the delays at Dover? Let me know your thoughts, Dan at gbnews.uk. Email us there at GBNews on Twitter too. We've got a poll running as well. The results shortly. But Henry Bolton, your wish has been granted to debate Simon Calder. And Simon, thank you. I believe you're on a boat somewhere in Italy. Is that right? Not France?
Absolutely. I'm in the Mediterranean. I've been flying over France. I'm here in Italy. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a wonderful thing to be able to travel. And I'm making an exception here. It's very late at night. It's very dark. I'm very much in the middle of the Mediterranean, but I could not pass up the great opportunity to talk about this in a respectful way.
Because, Simon, you remain convinced that it's all down to Brexit, these queues, even though both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss say you're wrong.
No, I didn't ever say, and I was so interested that you said it was solely down to Brexit. No, I said it was a horrible weekend. There was a disaster. I've never seen the boss of the Port of Dover so apoplectic as he was on Friday morning when the French didn't show up. But look, forgive me, I've been covering travel for a billion years. And I've learned that it's almost always cock-up, not conspiracy. This was a cock-up on the part of the French. It did terrible things to a lot of people's holidays. It started the biggest getaway weekend since Brexit off to a really bad start. And that was the French entirely. But it wasn't because Emmanuel Macron had phoned them up and said, let's stuff it to them Brits. It was a mess up. And after that, I'm afraid... of course, things got worse. We had terrible queues at Dover. That moved to Folkestone. But basically, the problem is that we decided we wanted a frontier just like the one that the EU has with Turkey or Russia, but we wanted to put it in Kent. And that's always going to present a challenge, I'm afraid.
Henry Bolton, what do you disagree with?
Well, not a great deal, sadly, about that. I was hoping for a good sparring there, Simon. But anyway, good to see you. Look, Simon, you did write 4 days ago that actually most of this problem was caused by the French disastrously failing to staff all of their posts at Dover. And, of course, that's the crux of my point. It's not down to Brexit that there were queues. In fact, I mean, I've been saying from day one, before day one, before the referendum, if the people of this country voted to leave the European Union, there were going to be massive challenges that must be prepared for, must be planned for. And initially, that didn't happen. The Cameron government didn't do it. The May government didn't do it. And in fact, dug or created even more problems for us, perhaps. And it's only been recently that those plans and preparations have been put in place. But those included the development or the placement of additional controls, passport booths, immigration booths at Dover for the French to cater for slightly enhanced or extra timing for stamping of passports and so on. That was all prepared for. But, of course, that's meaningless if the French themselves don't man those posts, as they didn't, and as you've correctly pointed out 4 days ago that they didn't. Now, the thing is then, I've heard the argument, Simon, and I think it's come from you as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but that actually, in a sense, that's our fault for leaving because now there's a different form of border between us and the French. It's not that much different because we weren't part of Schengen before, and you'll know that there were passport checks, even if they were slightly and incorrectly, slightly more cursory than now. But the thing is that there is a principle in border management that not only are you securing your own border, in this case the French securing the external border of the European Union, but you're also required, best practice, is to facilitate and expedite the movement of legitimate passengers and goods across the border. The French failed in that. And if we look at a UK example, if we see queues at immigration controls at Heathrow, who do we blame? We blame Border Force and the management there for failing to staff those controls. We don't blame the UK immigration laws. We don't blame sort of procedures as such.
Well, indeed, and Simon, specifically to add to that point, we have seen senior French politicians blame us and say that we need to join Schengen, the Schengen zone. We were never part of that. So what's going on, Simon?
OK, well, just a couple of points. Henry has a fine and exemplary career, and he is, this is a lot of his life's work. But crucially, the assumption was, while we were in the European Union, that anybody who had the right to be in the UK pretty much certainly had the right to be in France and the rest of the Schengen area. And that wasn't a bad expectation. Now they cannot make that. We decided as a nation we want to become third country nationals. That means, as you will know, as an absolute minimum, every passport needs to be stamped. There's a whole lot of other checks they should be doing. Have you spent more than 90 days in the last 180 days in the EU? Because if so, you're not coming in. Have you got enough money for your trip? Have you got a return ticket? These are all things that we put in place when we were members of the EU. We agreed what the rules would be. Now we're subject to them. And that means in terms of transaction time, and I actually stood there, and you'll know, Henry, of course, at Port of Dover, there's very, very little room for anything. You've got the White Cliffs, you've got the harbour, you've got the A20, you've got the A2, and they're all kind of scrunched up. So you haven't got much space.
So, Henry, how do you respond to that key point from Simon? Because that's the point that went viral, that effectively we chose third country status as a result of Brexit.
But let me give you another analogy. If there is a public event, it might be a rock concert or it might be a demonstration or a football match, and the police know it's happening, they know it's coming up, they know how many people are going to be there, they know what the movement of the march is going to be or whatever, and yet they fail to deploy sufficient resources. Who's at fault? It's the police. And in this case, the French knew perfectly well that this was going to be a particularly busy weekend. The facilities were there for them to man, and they didn't. Now, that is the problem here. It's about the management of the process.
And John Redwood says, actually, as a result of that, all of us, we should just say, no, we're not travelling to France. And that's how we should show them that they need to start treating post-Brexit Britain with some respect. And I have to say, Simon, as someone who's travelled to France a lot over the past few years, I will not be travelling there if this is the way that they continue to treat us. Am I wrong taking that position?
I think that's a valid position, but Simon, it's an individual one. But if I can just say, one of the things you mentioned, Dan, or I think Simon actually, sorry, A20, A2, M20, M2, and so on. There has been a big flaw in UK preparation for this.
OK, Henry, just going to bring Simon in for the final word. So, Simon, there is talk of this boycott. I understand it. Can you understand it?
Of course. And look, freedom, everybody. If you don't want to go to France, if you don't want to go to any of the 27 EU countries, although, of course, no border control with the Republic of Ireland, that's absolutely fine. That's your choice. I'm in favour of individual choice, of freedom. I'm in favour of everybody having a really lovely holiday and meeting people in different countries and just enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the wine, enjoying the freedom
jealous.
To travel. That's
I'm very jealous, Simon,
critical.
that you are doing that right now, and I'm glad that you are. I just wish that France treat us with a bit more respect. That's the top British travel journalist, Simon Calder, and the former leader of the UKIP party, Henry Bolton. Thank you both so much.